Today we're talking about COPPA. COPPA is one of those very, very important laws that so many people aren't aware even might be out there. Big corporations know they have to get ready and they're getting fined, as we'll talk about. And it's something that, especially if you're working with kids or you're getting information for kids one way or another, even if you're appealing to a broad category of audiences, this is a law to watch out for. And it's a federal law. So let's dive in. This is a product that will be available for ProScale clients called the COPPA Compliance Toolkit. So you're going to have a little bit of preview in some of the sections that will be in the course. A little bit of a sneak peek in a sense. The purpose of this is to help you accelerate the implementation of your COPPA compliance with legal documents and best practices. So first, some quick disclaimers. One, not giving legal advice. This is purely for educational purposes. There's no guarantees. We're not a law firm at ProSCALE Legal, and we always encourage you to work with a lawyer. So what is COPPA? COPPA is the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, and it's really all about protecting info collected from children online. Here is an outline of what we're going to cover in these trainings. First, why should we care about COPPA? Then we're going to talk about when does COPPA apply. Then we'll talk about COPPA's requirements. And then we'll do a walkthrough of the COPPA toolkit. No matter what, we recommend that you review this training and the paperwork annually if you think that COPPA might apply to you. And this is just a best practice in general for corporate governance. Go back, review these things annually so that you don't forget. You make sure you're up to date. Extremely important principle. So let's dive in. Why should you care about COPPA? First, it's a federal law. So pretty much anybody in the United States can be under COPPA, potentially, if we meet the requirements. And it's also one of the strictest, most complex privacy laws out there. It's kind of like HIPAA when it comes to the collection of info on kids. And it's not quite as stringent at times as HIPAA, but in other ways, for a business that's never had to do HIPAA compliance, it's a big stretch for them. And it's no joke, by the way, like just one violation of COPPA can result in a fine over $50,000. So nothing to scoff at here. In fact, I could give you some recent examples of companies that have been fined for COPPA violations. Epic Games, they got fined just a couple of years ago over $500 million. So $500 million for COPPA violations. YouTube got hit with $170 million fines. And this was one of the, I think, early fines in COPPA history. And YouTube had to totally revamp how they collect information on kids. And then Amazon just last year got hit with a $25 million fine, and then Microsoft as well, $20 million. So these are some of the big top fines of businesses that everybody knows and is aware of, and that's something we will talk about. So the FTC actually has released estimated costs of COPPA compliance. And this just shows you how intense the rule is and how much work it takes to get COPPA compliant if you had to just go and try to do it yourself with even a legal team and tech people. The cost to get the legal documents in place and to implement the required mechanisms add up to about, according to the FTC, roughly, let's say, 50 hours of attorney time. So that would be about $18,000 just for attorneys. And then for tech people, it would be about 10 hours, let's say, at about $420, adding up to just shy of $1,900. Now, I want to emphasize here, though, that these are 2013 numbers. So we've seen a lot of inflation in the past couple of years, and things could cost even way more for a business just starting off trying to get COPPA compliant. And if you want to see more information, look this up for yourself. Here's the link. These are, again, are the FTC's number and how much it costs to get COPPA compliant. So you don't want to be subject to COPPA if you don't have to be. That's a major takeaway here. So the strategy is adopt practices and policies that might get us outside its scope or make us exempt from COPPA. That's our goal. How can we get outside of COPPA and make sure it can't apply to me? Or think of like MC Hammer, right? Can't touch this. It's not applicable to me. And this goes into part 2 of when does COPPA apply? Or maybe who does COPPA apply to? To sort of simplify things, I'm going to use a little bit of shorthand, by the way. So whenever I refer to children, I'm going to be talking about people who are under the age of 13. And when I talk about PI, I'm talking about personal information. So we're going to see these a bit. Now, COPPA doesn't apply to everyone. That's an important concept here. It doesn't apply to everyone. I'm not talking about people who aren't in the USA. I'm talking about people within the USA might still be exempt from COPPA. Nonprofits are generally exempt from COPPA, with the exception of nonprofits who are helping other people make profit might fall under it. So if you're a nonprofit and you're devoted to helping for-profit businesses and make them more money, COPPA might still apply to them. Now, let's talk about 3 different scenarios broken down by the FTC when COPPA might apply. So the first one is, and you could ask yourself, do you have a website or online service that is directed to children? And the question is going to be, of course, what does that mean to be directed to children? Well, FTC gives us a whole list of factors to consider. What is the subject matter of the content or the website? How does it appear? Does it look really childish, or does it look like it's really aimed at adults? Is it animated? Cartoon stuff is usually associated a lot with kids. I mean, obviously, you take a cartoon like Family Guy or Simpsons, it's less kids-oriented. Well, Simpsons became more kids-oriented, but Family Guy, right? That's more adult-oriented. South Park, more adult-oriented. Now, another factor is, what's the age of the characters involved or models? Do you have a lot of pictures of kids on the website? Then kids might think this is for them, and it might be a kid-directed website. And another thing to look at also is just what's the language? Like, is it kids' language, like 4th grade language on the website, or is it 8th grade or above? Ironically, right, I know a lot of people in the coaching industry or even the sales industry target using language that's like of a 4th grader or 3rd grader. So everybody's supposed to be using simplified language, unfortunately, but that's not the only factor. And then another one is going to be also who's the advertisers targeting with their messaging and all that. So this is going to be something where there's going to be evidence then of the actual audience composition. Maybe you pull up whatever evidence you have of who your clients are, who are people tuning in. YouTube might give you those statistics, for example. And then who is your intended audience? Who are you actually trying to do? What do your sales materials say? What does your business plan say? All these will be factored in. And man, that's a lot of stuff. How am I going to analyze all of it? And this is where lawyers come in. If you're especially borderline, you're not sure, and all these factors are kind of all over the place, absolutely need to bring in a lawyer to help you figure out if you're going to be COPPA compliant or need to be COPPA compliant. Your website might not be directed to children if, number one, you're not targeting kids as your primary audience. And let's say you don't collect personal information until you gather a person's age. So, you have a little pop-up window that says, please tell us your age. And then let's say they're 13, it might kick them, or let's say they're 12, it might kick them in a different website than someone who is an adult or says to be an adult. And then finally, a website won't be directed to kids if the person operating the website prevents the collection, use, and disclosure of personal information from children until they give notice to parents about their rights under COPPA and what's going on and get the parental consent as required. Let's go back to the question. Do you have a website or an online service directed to children? If the answer is yes or might be yes, now there's going to be another question we'll need to ask, and that is, do you collect the personal information from children? If you don't, if you just have a static website that's just sitting there, no information gathered, no cookies, none of that stuff, then you might be okay. But if the answer is yes, you're under COPPA, very likely. If the answer is no, then the question becomes, do you let others collect personal information from children? And if the answer is yes, then you're under COPPA. So it's not just a question of do you collect information, but do you also let others collect information on your service? If the answer is no, so nobody's collecting information from children, then COPPA might not apply here. So even though the website's directed to children, if nobody's collecting info from children, there's a good shot maybe no COPPA. Scenario number 2, we're talking about here a website that is directed to a general audience. So it's just for anybody and everybody. Maybe most of us have websites like that. Let's say the answer is yes. The next question is, do you have actual knowledge that you collect personal information from children? This might be not just, are you intending to collect information from children, but Maybe you have a survey and you ask the age, and then you see that you're getting 12-year-olds, 10-year-olds, all these people also partaking in the survey. If the answer there is yes, you're getting kids providing you information and you know it, then COPPA might apply. But if the answer is no, then maybe COPPA won't apply. So if a general audience for the website or service, and you don't know if you're collecting information from children, then you might be off the hook when it comes to COPPA. Now, there's a third scenario, and this is probably less important for most of us, but if you happen to have a network, a plugin, or something where you are connecting with someone else's website or online service. Now, the question is going to be, do you have actual knowledge that you collect personal information from users of a website or service directed to children under 13? Do you know if you are connected with a service or someone who is actually directed to children? If the answer there is yes, then you are under COPPA. But if the answer there is no, then you might be off the hook. So this is not actual knowledge that you're actually collecting personal information from kids. It's just whether you have actual knowledge that the website or service you're connected to is directed to children under 13. Now, I hope this is helpful, and we're going to get into why this is so important, actually, these three items that we just went over. And by the way, you could always go and watch the replay. But the essence here is we're trying to help you be an executive. And that means taking charge of your business. And as we say, knowledge is power. You need knowledge to properly run your business, to make the important decisions that can help save you lots of money and make you lots of money. So in this case, based on what we talked about, there's actually about 4 strategies that you as an executive can apply in your business to help you steer clear of COPPA. So number 1 would be ensuring that you're not directed to children. So number 1 would be ensuring that your website is not directed to children. Number 2 would be ensuring that you do not collect personal information, period, from anybody. You just have a static website. Most of us can't quite go to that extent, though. We're going to maybe steer clear of specifically collecting information from children. So that would be strategy number 3. And related to that could be actually blocking kids, like having a filter, as we talked about, having a little pop-up, confirm you're at least 13 or older. Things like that can help avoid COPPA. Even if you have that filter in place and you know you're still collecting information from kids, you still might have some COPPA issues. So what we have here and that we just showed you are simple legal hacks that can save you over $20K or more. As we mentioned, that's the FTC's estimate of what it could cost to get into COPPA compliance. And it will obviously vary a bit from business to business, depending on the complexity of their websites and what they're collecting and the information there, but it's no joke. And right now, I'm just seeing public companies and large corporations scrambling to hire privacy experts, attorneys and technicians and people like that, knowledgeable in privacy, because it's becoming a bigger and bigger issue, in part because of laws like COPPA. Now, if you aren't able to steer clear of COPPA and these strategies that we talked about can't help you, good news, we still have what we call the COPPA Compliance Toolkit, of which this is a part of it. And we are just so excited about it because it can help someone get COPPA compliant faster, cheaper, and easier. So you want to work with someone that can accelerate that process, make it easier for you, and maybe even for your industry understands it to give you the quickest path forward for COPPA compliance. And again, I want to contrast this to the FTC's estimates where they said that back in 2013, it could cost $18,000 plus to get COPPA compliant. So if this is something that you're interested in, you're maybe working with kids, directing a website to kids, collecting information from kids, or otherwise concerned about COPPA or any other privacy laws or compliance in general, feel free to book a strategy call with us at ProSCALE Legal. The link's here, https://www.proscalelegal.com/book-strategy. And we would love to help you out. Drop any comments. If you have questions, we're here to help you. And please share, invite others to the Business Legal Tips Live. Thank you, and we will see you next week.